Life Hacks Beyond Convention with Dee and Sonia.
And then that
Mm.
brings me to the next question I've been pondering.
Yes.
Is there any benefit to the diagnosis of a lot of these things? Because I see a huge upsurge in diagnosis of all sorts of different disorders, or I don't know, are they called disorders? I'm probably not being very politically correct. All sorts of things. Let's just say things, because I don't want to offend anybody. But and then you look and you think, has that actually helped society? Does it help those individual people or not? And I'm on the fence for that, because I've seen with my own eyes some benefit to some diagnosis, but I've also seen what I would consider a negative impact caused by diagnosis.
Okay. Perhaps describe that negative impact.
I guess, especially here in Australia, when we have a very socialised health system, people can lock into a diagnosis as a way of, I don't know, making excuses for behaviour and getting welfare money.
Yes, I think that's true.
That's a
I
really
think
nasty thing to say, though.
Well, there's going to be a cohort of people that are like that. You know, once you get bell curve, there's going to be one lot at that end. Yes. And they probably stand out more the way that all Americans wore Hawaiian shirts and smoked cigars decades ago. You know, that was that picture that people had. Yeah. So I think there's certainly a cohort that do that. They're really looking for a way to not have to conform, or not that they should conform, but to manage their social situation.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
what I see, because part of what seems to be coming out of it, instead of people recognising, well, like, would have it been beneficial for me as a young person to recognise that actually I just think differently. There's nothing really wrong with thinking differently. But here's some strategies to put in place so that you can manage those social situations around you more productively and move through life in a, I don't know, maybe a more seamless way than what I have. Would that have been useful? Yes, that would have been useful. Would have it been useful, though, to be diagnosed with something and then funneled into a system? No, it wouldn't be. And that's sort of what seems to be happening, because it really can impact people. Like, I was talking to someone recently, can't remember, I think it was, no, I can't remember. It was we were talking about I just can't remember what the condition was, a specific diagnosis for something anyway. And what this person was saying is, I don't think I want to go and get an official diagnosis at all, because that then locks you into this system, which includes all sorts of things about licenses and different ways that your whole life can be impacted just because you've got diagnosis. And I'm looking and thinking, well, I don't know that that's useful for society either, because what the government are obviously trying to do is ensure that people are safe. Well, that's what I assume.
Yeah. Well, let's put that in different terms. The government are trying to ensure that they are not litigated for not looking like they're making people safe.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's the
That's a
cynical
brutal
view
way.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah. But
yeah.
they do pigeonhole people.
Yeah, so
And
anyway, I have been thinking about this quite a lot, because I do think there's definitely, and it even goes back to things as simple as taking a personality test, doesn't it? How useful is that for a lot of people? And for some people, it's not useful at all, because all it does is give them an excuse for bad behaviour. Well, that's just my personality. That's how I am. It's like, well,
Mm.
no, because the purpose of that is to look at what are the personality traits you're exhibiting and to double down on those that are really strong personality traits and to look at those that are weaknesses and think about, well, okay, where can I improve? And
Mm.
so I wonder about now, I know that neurodivergence and different other mental health disorders are much more complex than a personality quest.
Oh, yeah. Mm.
But it's still, I wonder about some of the
Mm.
things that underlie it. Like, how useful is it, especially with just what I'm seeing? There's just this huge influx of like ADHD for
Mm.
kids at school and all of this. And I'm thinking, what has caused this? Is it something that's happened in society? You know, by the time our children are 3, they've been they've had 70 vaccines.
Yep.
So is it something like that? Because that's a lot different to when my children were young. Like
Yep.
there was nowhere near the number of vaccines. So is it
Yeah.
something like that? I'm not saying it is. I'm just
Mm.
asking the question.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm concerned about the adjuvants used in vaccines for that reason. We stopped using aluminium pots because they gave us Alzheimer's, supposedly.
exactly. So that's the
Now
other
they
thing.
use a form of aluminium to stabilise vaccines because they got called out for using the form of mercury.
Well, the other thing with
So,
aluminium, I was in the supermarket in the coffee aisle yesterday, and I
mm,
don't know why I was looking at the pod machines, pod things, because I don't even have a pod thing. Like I don't have a
mm,
pod machine, but
yeah.
I suppose because the coffee I was looking at was up there, and then all the pods were under here, and one of them caught my eye because this huge marketing that obviously was a selling thing was aluminium pods. And I'm thinking, well, that wouldn't be a positive thing because there's a direct correlation between the intake of aluminium and Alzheimer's.
Well, there was some years ago when we were being told not to use aluminium pots. Is that true? Was it a marketing ploy by the stainless steel company, or
Well,
do
from
you
what
know what I
I
mean? Has
understand,
it?
there's quite a lot of science that sits behind that aluminium is one of the
Okay.
biggest indicators for Alzheimer's. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, so I do, and I'm not a researcher either. So
Mm,
I do rely on other people's interpretation
yeah.
of the data. I
I
can't.
agree. Yeah, I've never questioned it till this moment because as you said it, I went, okay, well, where did we get our data from? Most of it came from advertising or like promotional stuff to stop you using aluminium, didn't it? And yet we use foil all the time.
Well, I don't
Okay.
because of that. But the interesting thing is with aluminium foil,
Mm,
every time, because I do have some in the cupboard for um, some uses, but if I'm actually going to put food on it, I don't have the aluminium touching the food. I always have
okay.
another layer between my food and the aluminium.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Mm,
know that's just me being thingy because, well,
mm.
if aluminium isn't good for us, why on earth is it promoted so much in supermarkets? And why is it, such a normal part of cooking?
Yeah.
Like you say, we don't use our aluminium saucepans anymore. So anyway, that takes us down the rabbit trail, didn't it? Because how we got there
Yeah.
was why there's so many children that are being diagnosed with
Yeah.
these conditions, and I don't think they're made up. Do you know what I mean?
Oh
I look at
no,
the
they're not.
children,
No.
and the children really are experiencing difficulties. So why?
Yeah.
Is it a
I
societal thing? Is there more nurture, or is it, other impacts from society, from, like we've said, is
mm,
it,
yeah.
who knows? I don't even know.
Yeah, it's a hard one, isn't it? Because,
Mm,
like you say, you watch the children, you interact with the children, you know that they're outside of what
struggling.
we've been told is the norm. Now, I saw some figures recently that said 40% of children
Mm.
are.
I've
Well,
seen something similar.
that's no longer on the fine ends of the bell curve.
No, No,
at
this is
all.
a real issue. Is it the advent of our technology? Because that's another thing. Or is it just that it's a whole culmination of all of it? Because I think,
Mm.
because our children, especially the young ones now, like, well, the world they live in is just so different,
I
isn't
don't
it,
know
with
whether you,
technology and
yeah,
whatnot?
don't know whether you remember when my child was young, um, MSG was an issue,
Mm,
and would the consuming of any MSG would set this child off
mm,
just absolutely aggro, yeah,
mm,
really bad tantrums and everything else. Take the MSG out of the system and everything calmed down.
mm,
So, and that's the same with sugar. We have so much more sugar, so much more gluten in everything.
mm,
Even our soy sauce isn't made the way soy sauce is made. It's made with wheat. So there's a whole heap of
mm.
irritants that we're bringing into their diet.